Hi, and this is Eden Gordon Hill with Defenders Live, and we are back again, yes, for another military spouse feature. I have today Suleyka Gonzalez, and I also have Marlene Norgard, and we are here for the part 2 series. We are talking about the underemployment of our military spouses. All three of us live in military communities, and we are seeing it firsthand in our nation's backyard. The underemployment of our spouses, and the fact that our military spouses are now at the forefront of what is happening in our nation. We have members of Congress from the very top focusing on military acts to give businesses tax incentives to now hire military spouses. And today we're going to talk about job resources, LinkedIn, and we're going to talk about being entrepreneurs in our own right and what led us to this point. So, ladies, thank you for being here. Here we go.
Yes.
All right. Sure. So, at the very bottom, it does say 12% of our nation's military spouses are unemployed, seeking work and not getting it. So we have about 479,000 military spouses that are in this space. So Suleyka, we're going to kick off with you. I want to talk about LinkedIn, the resources that you have found, and what got you to the point of being a virtual administrative assistant. We'll start with you.
Yeah, so I joined LinkedIn about 2 years ago, and it was a requirement that I needed to do for a class that I was participating in. And through LinkedIn, I was able to meet with different mentors, different other military spouses, and it opened up the doors to different programs and different career paths that I could take. And from there, I was given the opportunity to work on a project with someone as a contractor. And from there, I think it took about 6 to 7 months, and it just opened up the opportunity for me to be a virtual assistant. It wasn't something, it wasn't like this is what I knew what I wanted to do when I grow up. It was just kind of, it pays well. It allows me to have time with my family. If we move, my work is not affected. I was provided the training for it, and it was a perfect fit for our family.
So let me mention this. In this series that we're focusing on with Defenders Live, we really care about the military spouse and also the veteran spouse. I was never a military spouse, but I am a veteran spouse. And I see the engagement, the empowerment, and the employment piece as a huge piece to what we need to focus on for our spouse communities. I'm in Camp Lejeune area. Suleyka, you're by Camp Lejeune, and then Marlene is down in Florida. So Marlene, I want to talk with you now in regards to, you are a children's book author, you are an entrepreneur, you have your own bakery piece, if you will, and you are all over social media as well. Talk about how you got there and what inspired you.
Well, of course, it's always with my kids that inspire me, but especially them being so young, you're constantly being pulled in different directions and finding out different things that they need that you never thought they would before. Like with the cakes thing, my son wanted a magic school bus cake, and I'm like, great. We're in the middle of nowhere. How am I supposed to find one and find someone to bake it? And he's like, well, mommy, you make it. I'm like, oh, sweetheart, you're so cute, but mommy can't make cakes. So I was like, maybe I'll try this. And it looked like a magic school bus. It turned out really well. I was like, maybe I found like a hidden talent here. So he started me on. I mean, my husband got me started on books, saw a need with my son, and said, why don't you be the person to create that? So that's how I started. It was just because of my kids. I just saw a need, and I filled their need as best I could.
But the need that you saw, you said your husband inspired you to write the kids' books, and you have 3 kids' books. Mm-hmm. But what need did you see that you had to sit down and start putting pen to paper?
I did what every mom does. You see something going on with your kid, and you said, I can find resources. This is 2022, or at the time, this was, I think it was 2017, and I just thought that there'd be plenty of resources. So I went to Google, I went to Amazon, and I'm looking at all of these books. I'm like, military kids books, let's see what we can find. And there was zero. There was absolutely zero. There was maybe one or two on moving, and that was it. But the specific thing I wanted to target was him understanding friendships and understanding that we don't lose touch with our military family. You may make a friend and they may move away, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of the friendship. And he wasn't understanding, I just made a friend and then he up and moved a year later. And so I went ahead and I was like, well, it's not out there, so I'm going to create it. There was always journals that would allow the parent and child to have a relationship while overseas or while deployed, whatever. But there wasn't something for children to develop those relationships, those long relationships. So I found that was odd. And I said, kids are our backbone of the military. They're the ones that come home at the end of a hard day and they give you all the love they can. And they just really fix all of your little problems of the day. They fix all of those little things that go wrong. And, if you're sad because your spouse is gone, they just give you a big hug. And, we need to take care of those relationships the most. And this way, it was the best way that I could find for my son to really start a foundation of strong relationships, especially since we were going to be moving a lot.
So you just touched upon the next question I was going to ask both of you, relationships. And being in the military, being that military spouse, whether it's male or female, it's all about cultivating those relationships from one duty station to the next. But as you continue to move from one duty station to the next, it's like you said, your son, and you had daddy's deploying and then also Callie's travels. You said to me that he would pack his backpack because he was afraid he was going to lose. He was not understanding that whole transition piece. And at the end of the day, the relationship piece for both of you has brought you to where you are now in your journey. So, Suleyka, I'm going to go back to you with the relationship piece. Mentoring,
Yes.
you found early on in the Marine Corps. And then, Marlene, I'll go back to you on the mentoring piece. But Suleyka, talk to me about the Links program and some of the resources that you came upon a mentor that got you to the administrative virtual assistant space.
Yes. So Links was something that I did as soon as we got onto Cherry Point. That was our first duty station. And Links stands for Lifestyle, Insights, Networking, Knowledge, and Skills.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So what they basically do, they start you off with a 3-day series, and you go in and they give you Marine Corps history. They talk about, they give you a tour of the base. They take you on a bus and give you a tour of the entire base. They give you a tour of all the resources that you have within the base. And they also give you outsources to resources that are out in town. And that was very beneficial to me because it's not like, you move to your house. It's not like you go around walking the neighborhood saying, oh, what can I do? Or what's there available for me? So that was very useful. Mm-hmm. And through there, I met a mentor through the MFLAC program. And MFLAC is, military family counselor. Okay. And she was my backbone during that time because being in the military for the first time, I felt like a fish out of water. We got married. We immediately moved to the coast from the Midwest, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know my neighbors, and I didn't know what to do. I was alone. I was sad, and of course, my husband immediately had to go to work, so he'd be gone for 12 hours a day, and I'm just sitting here in my house like, I don't know what to do. So that Links program was very, very beneficial to me. My MFLAC also helped me start with MySeco, and MySeco provided the MyCAA grant, which is they give $4,000 to qualifying spouses. I think you just have to be, your husband has to be an E6 and below, I believe. That's how it was when I did it a couple of years ago. And I was able to take a skills test to figure out what skills I had, what skills I needed to work on, and that helped me choose the degree program that I wanted to pursue in order to get a career. So that was very, very beneficial to me when I first got in, or my husband got in.
So, Marlene, back to you. In the spouse navigation piece of when you first got in and you became officially a part of the Marine Corps as well, your husband inspired you, but what other resources did you seek out in your early stages? I remember you stating that you guys were in Hawaii, you came to Camp Lejeune, now you're down in the great state of Florida. And the navigation, the spouse navigation piece that Suleyka just mentioned, what would you also recommend to young spouses who are trying to figure out what their identity is?
I mean, I struggled with it as well. So I'm by far, with everybody else on this. I mean, I came in with a bachelor's degree in crime scene technology, and now I'm making cakes and writing books. So, you know, it's, you just have to kind of morph into a different person, because I thought I was going to be that career woman first and then have my children. And so when we first went to Hawaii, I went to Pearl Harbor and I said, listen, I do crime scene. I was also dispatcher. It was great pay. I just figured it would be beneficial to me to be in that kind of environment, because we were going to be military for so long. So if I could hop from base to base to base doing dispatch work. But as soon as I mentioned family, they chose the other candidates over me. And I was like, really? I could be, I have the background, I have the knowledge to do this job. And then it kind of switched my brain. I was like, I'm probably looking, if I want to have family, I'm probably going to have to switch gears and switch my head off and just say, you know what? It's okay. Goodbye to my bachelor's, all those wasted years. I'm going to have to figure out something that's more family oriented. Mm-hmm. So I think it took me a couple of years to get out of my head and, be okay with, I'm just going to be a mom for now, enjoy myself, enjoy the time with my young children. And, I know that I'll be guided towards something that can make a difference, or something that will make my heart sing again. Yes. And that's how I found the books. And I said, you know what, this might be my one thing. Let's pour all I have into this. So poured all my money, all my heart into it. And, I'm still working my way up. It's very frustrating trying to navigate finding these specific books into that specific market, because although the military is great, it's very broad, it's also a very mainstream, like very tiny market, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
And so I found it difficult to find out where I could place them best.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, I look to my kids. I look to see what the needs are. My kids need cakes. I needed to find out where to go for cakes. So I was like, I need to kind of be a little bit better at this. But with everything you do, you get better and better with practice. So with these moms, these young moms, you find that purpose in your home and you do the best you can at it. And eventually it's going to turn into something. It's very hard to go from, almost executive, nice high paying job to homemaker. It's very difficult, because you're like, well, I'm not doing anything. I spent all that time and money in school and focus, and then you're at home, but you really do find your purpose at home. I had to talk to a lot of friends. I talked to a lot of people. I talked to my mentor over there at Camp Lejeune. I met her over there. And I just got some great advice. I got some more direction. I got that pat on the back, like, listen, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
You really need a strong support of spouses behind you. And it might take you a while. I found my strong network in Camp Lejeune. Mm-hmm. I didn't really find it in Hawaii. I found it in Camp Lejeune. I think it was because I was more open to it.
Yeah.
With a lot of younger women, they're not really open. Either you're just in it for, the Starbucks coffees in the morning, or you're in it because you have babies. But then once your babies are like 2 and 3, you're like, I kind of need to get like a solid group of people behind me, so that absolutely. So that I can function on a daily basis. I can be an adult. I can be a mom. I can be a girlfriend. You can be a better wife, because you have to balance all of those things in your life.
Right. Let me ask you something. So both of you, and obviously Suleyka, I saw your little girl come over and hug you. And, as we sit here, and a lot of our world now is very virtual, ever since the pandemic, we can play a little word verbiage on there. But ever since that happened, a lot of spouses were able to get hired during that time period.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Suleyka, you brought it to my attention and you said, you know what? Spouses are now running into some issues because things are transitioning back out of virtual and now back into office. So, what about babysitters? What about school? What about that, doctor's appointments and soccer games and everything that you guys do on a daily basis for your children, being the CEO of your household? So you had addressed the issue that we need to raise the flag. So I say for all those in the back, turn up your hearing aids because we got an issue. We got an issue that's at the very forefront, and that is the underemployment of our spouses.
Yes.
They're tired of volunteering. They're tired of not being recognized for who they really are. And you both show what the resilience and the backbone is to our Marine Corps and also to our United States military. And that does not get enough credit. But I will tell you, those who are showing credit towards you guys, the Military Spouse Hiring Act is now proposing, which just happened within the past month or so, it is proposing to amend the tax code to incentivize businesses to hire military spouses. And then this also was highlighted. The legislation expands the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program, encouraging employers to hire individuals who have the experience and remove those barriers for you guys for the military spouse. So that's huge. But here's the thing. We need to engage the spouse community. We need to empower the spouse community, and we need to make sure that they get employed. And at the end of the day, there seems like there's a lot of jobs going around, but why are they not getting hired? And is it the childcare piece? Is it the navigation of the family piece that obviously needs to come first? So, Marlene, you touched upon that. And then Suleyka, obviously, knowing that your girls are in the background as you are being that virtual assistant to some pretty high profile people. So with that said, what are ways that we can link up, taking the term from Camp Lejeune, links, what ways can we link up with other spouses, men and women both, to say, hey, get in the game, stop isolating. There are other ways to be active in the community, active to take care of your family, and also lead a very prestigious career in that path. Tips from both of your toolboxes. Suleyka, what would you say?
I think now that the pandemic and the stipulations and such are kind of being pulled back some, I will say that during that time, that really opened an opportunity for people to connect virtually. So, for example, I was not as like I didn't have Facebook at the time. I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have anything. And I felt like the only way I started homeschooling my children last year. And people were still like, you would go to the playgrounds and the families would kind of keep to themselves. So I didn't know how to get my resources as a new homeschooling family. Of course, I turned to Facebook and there are all these groups, and that's how I built that network. So I do appreciate that we were kind of pushed to no other resource, but to join something to virtually to be able to meet people and gain resources. But now coming out of that, now that the doors are a little bit more open, people are coming out more often, I definitely encourage networking face to face. Like I feel like there is just something different when you meet somebody for coffee or you go out to a restaurant together as opposed to doing it virtually. But there are different resources available that provide networking events for military spouses. So one of the ones that I'm familiar with is Hiring Our Heroes has a military fellowship program. And here now this year, they opened one on Camp Lejeune, and they just finished training the lead. And she's going to open up, she's going to get together with different families and different military spouses and start doing workshops in person. So those are beneficial, even if you don't know what you want to do, or if you don't have a career plan, or if you're just a stay-at-home mom and want to meet friends.
Right.
Things like that and events like that is where you need to be and who you need to be with. because
Right.
that is where you find your mentors, that is where you find your support, and that is where you find your resources.
Let me also ask you really quickly. We talked about the LinkedIn and the power of connection within LinkedIn.
Yes.
And you are, I would call, a semi-pro, if you will, in the LinkedIn space. And you have taught a lot of different people the navigation network of LinkedIn.
Yep.
Can you give just a couple tips
Sure.
for that spouse?
Sure. So, first and foremost, get on LinkedIn. If you don't have one, you need to have one. Also, if you have, for example, I went into human resources. That was something that I wanted to pursue for a couple years. Reach out to people that are in that career space. So, all you have to do is kind of like a search on Google. They have a search on LinkedIn. Type in human resources, cybersecurity, administration, whatever you are into, and reach out to that person. Send them a message and say, hey, I am new to the career field, or I am just getting back into the workspace, and I'd like to join your network to just follow up on resources and tips and things that you're giving. And then from there, of course, they're not going to say no. And then you just do that to different people, and then they post different jobs, they post different workshops, they post different resources, and you're able to comment on these posts, and people will add you. They'll say, oh, here's a military spouse, I want to connect with her, and then they'll connect with you, and from there build your network. One thing that's very important is I'm in Camp Lejeune, but I have friends in Texas, I have friends in Washington DC, I have friends in Ohio through LinkedIn, and I've never met these people in my life, like in person. I've never met them. I've only met them virtually. So I feel like it's very important for military spouses to just reach out and connect to people that are within the workspace that you want to pursue, and build those networks, because you never know when you will need a resource or a letter of recommendation, or something to benefit you when you go back into the workforce.
Right. And Marlene, what do you think would be your tips of recommendation? You are no longer at Lejeune, but when the three of us were the force to be reckoned with at Lejeune, on to really be in front of the spouse commentary, the spouse education, interacting with the spouses. You two, especially, were at the very forefront at all the spouse breakfasts, the speakers series, all of the events that we put together to really make a network for the spouses to have an outlet. What are your thoughts towards that, Marlene? 4 tips for the new spouse, and then also those who may be stuck in the middle of what's next for me, and it's continually about their spouse who's active duty.
I mean, one of the first things I did, because you really, as a young spouse, especially coming into the military right off the bat, I mean, I was a little older when he entered, but I like plunged head first into the kickball league because I knew it was a bunch of spouses, bunch of women, and there's a bunch of career women in there as well. And I started off my networking with that. And I said, all right, let's get comfortable with this first. And then I'll move to the next step. And then I started those breakfasts. And then I started going to the job fairs, and I started doing all of that.
Right.
I even went, when we went to CPAC,
Right.
I went ahead and I found someone, and it was just some random person. It wasn't a person at a booth. It wasn't a person, standing there holding cards with a camera in his face. I found a man outside the bathroom and talked with him, and found out about this wonderful non-for-profit group called Task Force Tribute. And they're going to be doing an event up in Pensacola, Florida, that I'm going to be a part of. I'm just honored to be a part of. And what it is it's a group for military, for veterans, for everybody. Everyone's welcome, and they're going to try to help kind of link and build that bridge between the veterans and the workforce, and try to, because it's a huge problem with not even just mil spouses, but veterans as well.
Yes.
I mean, everyone's struggling right now. And I think there's some stigma with the military spouse, that even if you see a paper come across your desk, you don't know really who they are. They could be 18 years old, they could be 30 years old, and you're looking at, well, they haven't worked in 8 years. Well, they've been serving their country too with their kids at home.
Right.
They've been doing that so that their husband can serve you or their wife can serve you, keep you safe. So you owe them something at the very least.
Right.
And to take a second look at them. But I think there's a little stigma. I'm like, well, she was raising her kids for 10 years, so she hasn't worked as good as she. But she might be better off because she's going to be more loyal because she needs her job. She needs it to be a solid foundation because we're going to be traveling, especially if it's virtual. Over the 18-year-old who's fresh out of college might not have a lot of life experience. So I think that we need to stop the stigmas on these people that come across our desks of, well, they haven't worked in that long. Things have changed. Things have changed, absolutely, but that person is going to hold the key to your success in that business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are very great points. And one thing I want to highlight, I was doing my own research, and militaryspouse.com for all of those who are watching. And I will tell you, Defenders Live, as we've been doing these military spouse / veteran spouse employment features, our ratings, people are just popping all over the place checking this out. And I want to highlight the top 10 military spouse friendly employers of 2020, militaryspouse.com, for all of those who are interested in seeking out. But also, I want you both to just highlight your social media links. We are coming up on the end of the segment. If you guys could both recognize where people can find you and just let us know what you would like to offer to that military spouse for them in their journey. Suleyka, go ahead and go first.
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, Suleyka Gonzalez, and I will come up on the search bar and just connect with me. And I will do my best to find whatever resource, whatever person, whatever you need. I will do my best to try and find it for you.
And then Marlene.
I am as well on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I have Facebook. I don't really use a Facebook that much, but I would love to connect with any military spouse looking to start their journey or kind of confused on where they want to go or what direction they go. And we just need to let these women and men know that they're not alone.
Yes.
Suleyka Gonzalez, Administrative Virtual Assistant, and Marlene Norgard, Military Spouse and Children's Book Author. Thank you both for being with us on Defenders Live. We look forward to doing part 3 of this series. And if you have any questions out there to our audience, please find us on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and every other social media entity. We are out there to answer your questions, and we look forward to being with you again. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here.
Thank you.